Protect Amanda Angaro. She has First Lady Melania Trump running scared, and it appears that she might be the reason Melania came out with her press conference out of nowhere yesterday.
Well, I think we now know why Melania was randomly talking about Epstein yesterday, and it all goes down to Amanda Angaro. Talk about the Streisand effect. They might want to rename it the Melania effect after this, because my God, this has exploded.
The lies linking me with the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein need to end today.
This just happened. Until moments ago, Amanda Angaro had no posts on her X account, just her replies to Melania Trump. Her first post was my video talking about her replies to Melania Trump and how Melania Trump's press conference was likely to do with what she knows and what she might be about to release.
Melania, you in danger, girl. You know that friend that you had got deported? Well, she out of ICE custody, and apparently she on your neck. Melania, what was going on yesterday? You must have found out your friend got out of ICE custody. Now, before we can talk about that speech Melania gave, we have to actually talk about this article by the New York Times. Now, in this image seen here at the 2021 Mar-a-Lago New Year's Eve party, the woman seen there goes by the name of Amanda Angaro. She's Brazilian, and she was dating that guy by the name of Mr. Zampoli. Well, they were dating for decades. They had a child. He's about 17 years old now. When they broke up, she ended up moving down to Miami and getting married to a Brazilian doctor. She ended up being caught up in some sort of like scheme, like Medicare fraud or something like that, which again, people are starting to speculate that it came from the baby daddy. Well, after she had got arrested, he then called Donald Trump and had her deported to Brazil, her and her Brazilian doctor husband. And then he took custody of their 17-year-old son. The son asked to go to Brazil with his mom, but then was in Brazil, was like, oh, I'd rather come back to the States. So now he's with the dad. Now let's talk about what that has got to do with Melania. Apparently, that girl has been on a crusade because she is an Epstein victim. She stated that she had flew into the United States at 17 years old, on the Lolita Express, child, and she stated that that's when she had met Melania, and then Melania had then got introduced to Mr. Zampoli, or whatever you say his name. She dated him, and then she turned around and dated Donald Trump, referring to Melania. Yes, honey, they was all dating, if that makes sense. Melania was dating Zampoli, then she turned around and dated Donald Trump. That's how they met. Okay. Now let's fast forward to Melania's little weird speech she gave trying to separate herself from the Epstein files, right? Apparently, Amanda Angaro is out of ICE custody. And these are the tweets that she's been putting out since that speech. She said, hello, Melania. I was around you for 20 years, and you know I was inside ICE. And you know what hurts after all this time? I stayed close to your family, your mother and your father, not because of you, but because of them, at events and everything else. So shut your mouth when speaking about me, because I will expose everything I know. And that's what brings us to Melania's speech. Melania must have got word that she got out of ICE custody.
The answer is these tweets by Amanda Angaro that she was sending out the night before or the morning of April 9th, depending on what time zone you're in, which we will get to that when it comes to her in a minute. But we're going to come back to these tweets. First of all, who is Amanda Angaro? Amanda Angaro is many things, including the ex-wife of Paulo Zampoli. Who is Paulo Zampoli, might you ask? Good question, because he's come up in the news actually multiple times in the past year, either with or without his name, just in like the ways that it was circulating. So I think a lot of people don't realize that all of them were this one guy. Let's get into it. Paulo Zampoli is a close personal friend of Donald Trump. He is currently the United States Special Envoy for Global Partnerships. In the first Trump term, he was appointed to the Board of Trustees for the Kennedy Space Center. Interesting how that needs to keep cropping up. So, close personal friend of Donald Trump. They met because he owned a modeling agency, and they became close through that world. What was Paulo Zampoli's modeling agency renowned for, might you ask? Well, for getting visa situations for like 14 to 16-year-old very young Eastern European girls to come model in the United States. Model. What do we have that associated with in the Epstein world now? You may also recognize the name or character of Paulo from a few months ago, the headline of when he got his ex-wife deported by calling ICE on her and separating her from her 15-year-old son, essentially kidnapping him and becoming the sole custody person. They initially met when she came to Manhattan from Paris on Lolita's Express, Jeffrey Epstein's plane. That's how they met for the first time. She was 17, he was 32, by the way. It bears mentioning here that in tapes taken by author Michael Wolff, Jeffrey Epstein claimed that Melania and Trump slept together for the first time on the Lolitas Express, his plane. So you better believe that in the very first hours of April 9th, when Amanda Angaro was getting on Twitter, directly adding the First Lady's account saying, "Do you know what I think about you after 20 years?
Hello brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. I'm hoping that you all are doing great from wherever you're watching this video from. As you know, I'm your host and present Agent Stories. Now, 4 days ago, I did a video, I reacted to a video where we saw Melania Trump coming out and explaining that she is not associated with Epstein file. And if you're keen, I told you one thing. I told you that when you see smoke, just know that fire is not so much far. And this is a perfect case scenario of what happened to Melania. Amanda Angaro, she's a friend. She's been our friend. But Amanda Angaro somehow has a problem with Mr. Donald Trump. Because you'll know what happened to Amanda Angaro. Yeah. So this is what is happening. Amanda Angaro said, "You know what? Screw you. I'm exposing you." And I think Melania Trump somehow knew what was coming towards us. And she was trying to get ready. She was trying to convince the masses that, I'm not associated with this. That was a projection. And that there, everyone caught her. Everyone caught her. You all knew. And I told you that there was something that was coming. That was something that it didn't take even a week, brothers and sisters. And now, Melania is getting exposed by his ex-friend. Her ex-friend, sorry. Yep. And the truth is getting out. At this point, Amanda Angaro used this trick. A friend of my enemy is my enemy. Usually you do say it the other way around. An enemy of my enemy is my friend. But Amanda Angaro used this. The friend of my enemy is my enemy. And so Melania Trump, she got exposed. She got exposed in regards to the Epstein files. We are all seeing that. So brothers and sisters, people talked about this. And I want us to watch this video. Brothers and sisters, I'll be back. I'll be giving my 2 cents in regards to this. And for those who are watching me for the first time, I'm your host and present Agent Stories. And thank you for tuning in. So let's watch the video. I'll be back.
She has thoughts, and they are true. She has seen some things. Then goes on to say, "I will take legal action against you and your," I had to scribble it out, "husband. I have known you for 20 years. You know I was detained in ICE. You were present in my life every year on my son's birthday, even sending Secret Service and being the first to congratulate him back in 2016. Something was clearly wrong, but I am not part of any evil mission involving children. So what did you do, Melania? You tried to involve me, but you failed because I have character." Clearly here implying that Melania tried to get her in on some kind of the sex trafficking ring, and she denied. "I will tear down your corrupt system, even if it is the last thing I do. I will go all the way. I am not afraid. Maybe you should be afraid of what I know, of who you are, of who your husband is." Yeah. And then she's finding this old address that Melania did and saying, "Until you fall as a little chicken," which is just funny. And there's a TikToker on here. I'll find his @ and put it up here so you guys can see that it started making videos about this earlier, or maybe even previously to this. And she very correctly was saying the fact she's worried about what I know says everything. And yes, it does, because the fact that Melania is a response to this is the only thing it could be a response to, in my opinion, gets up and does a completely impromptu address that allegedly Trump was not even aware that she was about to be making. Girl, you're scared. So not only is this girlhood dead, but she could be the reason that the Trump administration finally gets brought down. We need to get her back from Brazil. We need to get her testifying on the stand. everything she knows about this woman and tangentially the President of the United States. Paulo Zampoli is the former modeling agent who brought Melania to the United States for Donald Trump back in the 90s and has been in business with Donald Trump since the 90s. They did the whole modeling agencies together. They did the whole real estate world together. Paulo's a United Nations diplomat. He was a part of the first Trump administration, and he is very involved in the current administration. Right, okay, we've been talking about this guy since July. We know. As you guys know, I recently made contact with Amanda Angaro, and we are now in communication on a regular basis. We know Amanda Angaro is the mother of Paulo Zampoli's child, who he began grooming at the age of 15 years old. She was a victim of Jeffrey's operation. She was on Jeffrey's plane at just 16 years old. We knew that she was on Jeffrey's plane at 17 years old, per the flight logs that were released by the DOJ in 2021. But since speaking to Amanda, she has confirmed that she was on Jeffrey's plane at the age of 16, earlier than we even realized. Amanda has known John Casablancas since she was 13 years old, and we know Paulo actually grew up with John Casablancas, and John Casablancas is the man who inspired Paulo to become a modeling agent. Amanda was a victim and witness to Jeffrey's operation. She has a lot of information about the inner workings of this operation. She was on Jeffrey's plane with Jean-Luc Brunel. She has a very unique perspective into this entire situation. And as we know and have been reporting on, in June of 2025, Amanda was wrongfully arrested and held in an ICE detention facility for nearly 4 months. After being held for that period of time, she was deported to Brazil without any kind of due process or trial. Amanda has a fantastic team of attorneys who are currently helping her get justice for her wrongful arrest, her wrongful deportation, and the parental kidnapping and alienation of the child that she shares with Paulo. Those are all ongoing proceedings, and on the 21st of this month, Amanda will testify in front of the Supreme Court in New York City. While acknowledging she has years of legal battles ahead of her, we hope that the 21st begins a series of wins for her and her future. With permission from Amanda's legal counsel, she has been given the permission to speak on a wide range of things that have happened to her and are currently happening to her. We can't talk about everything right now, but after some of the upcoming legal proceedings that she has, she will be able to say more. So I'm going to share with you some information that Amanda has given me permission and her legal team have given permission for me to share with you guys. What I'm about to share with you is Amanda's own words, so I'm going to be reading from a screen so I can make sure I say everything correctly. And if you guys want to like read this stuff yourself and see like receipts and everything like that, you can go over to my Substack. I've already laid it all out and it's published on my page. So I'm going to share this message from Amanda with you guys, and then after that I'm going to go over a few different names of figures that Amanda has given me. And these are figures who are aware of what's going on within our government and are assisting Paulo in his quest to silence and seek revenge against Amanda. Okay, from Amanda Angaro, 1/18/2026. This is not family drama. This is a criminal operation. I have witnessed many things since I was a teenage girl who became swept up in this nightmare. I have photos to prove the physical abuse I have experienced at the hands of Paulo. I have proof of his longtime substance use issues. I have information and proof of his fraudulent business dealings and millions of dollars worth of insurance fraud that Paulo has committed. I have proof that me and my family have faced harassment, threats, and blackmail from Paulo for years. I have information and proof of government and public officials being bribed by Paulo. I have proof Paulo began trying to date me when I was 15 years old, and it is true that I was on Jeffrey Epstein's plane as a teenager. I was only 16 years old the first time I was put on his plane. I have proof Paulo abandoned his own mother in a nursing home in Italy after stealing her jewelry and other valuable items. If a man can rip away his own mother's dignity without a second thought, you can imagine what Paulo is capable of. I faced a false arrest based on manufactured charges. I was forced to stay in an ICE detention facility for months before I was deported to Brazil, where I have been fighting for justice. My paperwork and history of work for the United Nations did not stop the government from treating me like an animal. For 3 years before I was wrongfully arrested, I supported myself and my son without financial assistance from Paulo. In the years leading up to my arrest, Paulo and I did not have a romantic relationship, following an affair that he had in Washington, D.C. Paulo did call me his wife, and we were together for 19 years, but legally we were never married. During that time, Paulo was only a present father to fit his narrative and to appear to the public as a loving father. I did not keep our son away from him and allowed him to still see his father. I moved to Miami with my son to enter the workforce, really for the first time outside of my 10 years of work for the United Nations. My attempt to be independent and create distance between myself and Paulo enraged him, and everything got worse, especially when I filed for full custody. The court awarding me full custody would mean Paulo would have to pay years of unpaid child support and continue to financially support our son into adulthood. This was not something that fit Paulo's narrative, something he is desperate to control. I was being harassed relentlessly. My family and friends were harassed as well and even followed in some cases. Shortly after, I began working a job at a medical assistant training school that specializes in minimally invasive procedures. I was associated with a med spa in Miami. Many anonymous complaints began to flood in. The man that I was arrested with was my romantic partner at the time and is now my husband. He is an awarded plastic surgeon of 30 years who conducts teaching seminars across the world. 3 months before being arrested and booked in June, police showed up unannounced to our home. Police came into our home and took me and my partner out in handcuffs. We were thrown against the wall outside of our home, and neighbors began to come outside because of the police presence. They were shocked, we were shocked. Neither of us have a criminal record, yet we were handled with extreme force, humiliated, and made a spectacle out of. We were humiliated. We waited for an hour for the police to get a search warrant. They destroyed our home and found nothing. The officers then went to my workplace and were there for hours. They confiscated equipment properly approved, lasers by regulatory agencies, medical documents, and patient records. They did all this searching for evidence of criminal activity that simply did not exist. Then June came and my partner, now husband, and I were arrested. No one else from the training center or spa were arrested. I was picked up by ICE officers and taken to a detention center. No bail was possible. I felt so broken and confused. I remained imprisoned in that ICE detention center in Miami for 3.5 months, while increasingly absurd accusations were piled on and have yet to be proven. One of the charges placed against me included that I was practicing medicine illegally, which is an absurd lie that the state of Florida has yet to provide evidence to my legal team of. Nothing that my husband and I have been arrested for has been proven in court, yet I was deported without trial. I was not given the opportunity to prove that the charges against me were fabricated. My fate was decided before they put the handcuffs on me. When I arrived in Brazil, I began the legal process of fighting for custody of my son, and for a moment I was successful. Giovanni was brought to Brazil briefly after my deportation, per court orders, before Paulo illegally removed him from my care and the country, causing me to file a kidnapping complaint. I am still fighting for my son to be rightfully returned to my custody. So that is what Amanda has to share with you guys, what she has permission to share with you guys right now. If you go over to part 2, we're going to go over some of the names who Amanda has given me as figures in our government who have helped assist Paulo in having Amanda wrongfully deported and her son kidnapped from her. There is a man who is a part of our current administration who is in a long-term relationship and has a child with a model who he has been representing since she was a teenager, and also appeared on Jeffrey's flight logs when she was just 17 years old. I've already done an in-depth video, but I'm going to give you the cliff notes so that you can understand why I believe that this is very alarming. So Paulo Zampoli, we've talked about him many times. He works in our current administration. He is on the board of the Kennedy Center. He has been a close friend and advisor and business partner to our sitting president since the 90s. He was the modeling agent who brought Melania to the United States to meet Donald Trump originally, and they would go on to be married. Right around the same time, in the mid to late 90s, both Paulo and Donald Trump would open their own modeling agencies. Both of their modeling agencies would go on to face claims and accusations of R-word, SA, theft of wages, overcrowded apartments where the models would be housed, exploitation, and visa fraud. Paulo is a United Nations diplomat. From 2013 to 2014, he collaborated with Ghislaine and Jeffrey's fake oceanic nonprofit environmental organization, Terramar, which allowed Jeffrey and Ghislaine to make further connections and gain credibility through working with the United Nations. Through his modeling agency, ID Models, he would go on to represent a Brazilian teenager named Amanda Angaro, and that is the teenager who would appear on Jeffrey's flight logs back in 2002
when she was just 17 years old. Just a few years after Amanda appeared on Jeffrey's flight logs, Paulo would go on to date her and they would have a child together, and she would go on to also become a United Nations ambassador. And they have been together romantically for nearly 20 years, minus a brief moment in 2018 when they did break up. Amanda tried to leave Paulo in 2018 during Trump's first term, but Paulo called in some favors and had her flagged through immigration so that she could not return to her home country with her son. And Paulo also refused to pay her any kind of child support if she were to leave him. After this, they rekindled their relationship despite repeated allegations of infidelity and SA that Paulo has engaged in while in their relationship. Most recently, in June of 2025, just a couple months back, right around the time when the files became a topic of conversation again, Amanda was arrested in Miami alongside a Brazilian doctor, and they were arrested for illegally operating a medical facility, grand theft, organized scheme to defraud, and illegally acquiring prescription medications to give their patients, as they were allegedly offering invasive cosmetic procedures without any kind of licensing. When she was arrested, Amanda was placed on an immigration hold and set to be deported, and that is the last thing that we have heard about Amanda Angaro, the longtime partner of someone who is sitting in this current administration, longtime friends with the president, who appeared on Jeffrey's flight logs back in 2002, is just being deported. And the day after Amanda was taken into custody, Paulo Zampoli posts this photo of himself and Pam Bondi on his social media. No mention of Amanda at all. Amanda is no longer appearing in any of his photos afterwards. Like, since she's been arrested, there's been no photos with her whatsoever. There's been no seeming concern for Amanda at all. He's just been posting like everything's great, normal, happy even. And I'm not saying that Amanda didn't do anything wrong. Obviously, this is the United States. You're innocent until proven guilty. Obviously, she is on the fast track to being deported. And that doesn't make any sense from the standpoint that she is still a United Nations diplomat. She should have a diplomatic passport. She should have diplomatic immunity from arrest and prosecution of a lot of different charges. In a lot of situations, local authorities don't have the authority to disregard diplomatic privileges. It doesn't make any sense how the United States is actively deporting a United Nations diplomat and it's not being talked about at all in mainstream media. Regardless of the fact that she was on Jeffrey's plane at 17 years old, went on to have a child with the agent who is supposed to be representing her, who's 15 years her senior. Like, putting that aside because that's extremely relevant, but the fact that they're trying to deport a United Nations diplomat makes no sense at all. It doesn't make even a little bit of sense. I really hope that everyone is beginning to see the correlation between Donald Trump's modeling agency, Paulo Zampoli's modeling agency, John Casablancas' modeling agency, Jean-Luc Brunel's modeling agency, and how all of those men were friends of Jeffrey, and they all happily gave Jeffrey access to the droves of young girls and women that they had virtual ownership of. And we know for a fact that all of these men had very similar business models when it came to running modeling agencies. We know for a fact that one of the main ways that these men stacked their modeling agencies was via selling dreams to vulnerable young girls and young women, then illegally bringing them from overseas to the United States, where these young girls and young women would work for them. They would live in housing that they provided for them, which was typically overcrowded and run down. And these men would take up to 80% of these girls' wages, and these girls would be left at the mercy of them, not by their own choice, because they were guaranteed that their immigration would be all sorted out, but it never was. And before they knew it, they have nowhere to go. Obviously, this wasn't just happening internationally, this was happening domestically as well. But when it did happen internationally, and it did often, these girls would be put in terrible situations. A lot of these women and young girls would be required to attend events and parties to entertain the friends and associates of their bosses. And due to the nature of some of the accusations that have been levied against all of these men's modeling agencies, it's very safe to say that we all know what kind of operation this was. And right now, it's really starting to look like there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes to ensure that any victim is completely silenced, even if it means them being deported, when they hold the title of United Nations diplomat. I'm telling you guys, something is not right about this situation. And I know it's easy to judge Amanda because she's now, as a mugshot, she's arrested. I just feel like there's something more there. I'm not saying she's not guilty of those charges. I have no idea. I'm just saying there is absolutely something more to this situation. Okay, go to the next video because I found a story that aired on the news nearly 20 years ago about Paulo Zampoli and his close friend Donald Trump, and you guys are going to want to see it.
Okay guys, I found something absolutely crazy, and I apologize, I'm still a little bit congested. Obviously the video I posted yesterday, I filmed it before I got sick, and now I'm getting better. But I found something crazy, and I have to show it to you guys. Like, this cannot wait. So I was looking at old videos of Paulo Zampoli, enemy of the channel, you know, the modeling agent who brought Melania to the United States, who now works in our current administration and used his power under the current administration to have the mother of his child held in an ICE detention facility for months and deported wrongfully with no due process while they were involved in a custody battle, keeping in mind that the mother of his child, Amanda Angaro, began being groomed by Paulo at 15 and was on Jefrey's plane alongside Jean-Luc Brunel, her first modeling agent, at 16. If you want more information about him, go check out my Paulo Zampoli playlist. We've been talking about this guy since last summer. But I was looking at old videos of Paulo Zampoli, and I came across a video that was in a different language, but I saw a girl in this video that looked so familiar to me. And I don't mean Amanda Angaro, who we can see is clearly in this video, and her name can be heard in the video as well. Then I kept listening and looking, and I realized where I recognized this other girl from. I had like a That's So Raven moment when the woman who's speaking in this video said Svetlana, and I was like, oh my gosh, I know exactly who this girl is in this video with Paulo, advertising his real estate / modeling company. The girl in that video is Svetlana, or Lana Posidevia, and I may be pronouncing her last name wrong. And Lana recruited for Jeffrey and worked for Jeffrey for many, many years. She also has ties to the Russian government. Jeffrey was funding a company that she started, a women's empowerment company that she started. Like, there's a lot to this woman and all of her connections. We've spoken about her briefly a couple of times. She recently spoke out in an interview and explained how she was a victim of Jeffrey while also admitting to recruiting for Jeffrey. She also did try to downplay her ties to the Russian government, which is expected. I think it's important to note that she was in her mid-20s when she began working and recruiting for Jeffrey. She was not a part of Jeffrey's circle before she was an adult. And I think you guys, like, who have been here for a while understand that, like, there's a lot of nuance when it comes to some of the women who recruited and worked for Jeffrey. Like, for example, Nadia Marzinkova, she became a victim of Jeffrey while she was a child and then went on to become a perpetrator herself, recruiting and engaging with girls who were not of age. We can acknowledge and empathize that she was a victim of Jeffrey and that never should have happened to her, but at the exact same time, it doesn't take away the harm that they did towards other little girls as an adult. For me personally, I have a lot harder of a time understanding and empathizing with the women who were in Jeffrey's orbit who became a part of his circle as adults, knowing the crimes that he had committed and being quickly made aware of his vices. And I'm not saying like the women who were adults and began working for Jeffrey were not manipulated or they were not harmed themselves by Jeffrey. Nearly every woman and girl who came into Jeffrey's orbit was either harmed or manipulated by him. In this situation specifically with Lana, I think that her overall lack of remorse for her role in recruiting is very telling to me. And I will say, and this is just my opinion, the timing of Lana coming forward to, for the first time, say that she's a victim of Jeffrey is very interesting to me with the timing of the Bank of America settlement. That will soon be paid out to specifically the victims of Jeffrey. But I sent these findings over to Amanda. As you guys know, I've been in active communication with Amanda since January, and she confirmed that the girl in this video is indeed Svetlana Posidevia, and Amanda knew her through the man that she was dating who appears in this video. The man is Charles Riva. He is a close friend of Paulo Zampoli, and according to Amanda, was dating Lana at this time. And this video was probably filmed about 2009-2010. Here's a photo of Charles Riva at Paulo's home in 2015, the same home where another one of Jeffrey's recruiters was partying at in 2015. And what do you know? Charles Riva's name appears multiple times in Jeffrey's emails. He seems to be very involved with like the art scene in New York City. So things just keep stacking up against Paulo Zampoli, and I understand that Congress is on vacation right now or whatever, but like this is getting a little outrageous. I don't know if we're not understanding like the smoking gun that is right here. I don't know if we're not not understanding that this man is not someone who has been trained to only use language when speaking that will protect him and his associates. This is not Bill Clinton. This is not Bill Gates. This is not Jeffrey's lawyers who are trained to speak in a certain way to not implicate themselves. Paulo Zampoli is a career modeling agent and an international rush hourer. He is going to crack under pressure, but until the pressure is placed on him, he will continue doing whatever he wants. Right now, he's on a trip with the Vice President of the United States, traveling on our taxpayer dime. You know, it's really funny. On this same trip, Paulo was actively harassing his victims, trying to silence them and settle for money so that they will stop sharing their story and stop talking to journalists. He is actively trying to pay and silence his victims while he is on a trip with the vice president. The Oversight Committee has acknowledged Paulo Zampoli and are aware of what he has done. And so far, zero action has been taken. We need more than a tweet.
As a storyteller, I look at the Melania and Amanda Angaro situation as a battle of psychologic. Melania isn't fighting facts. She's fighting a vibe by issuing a high status denial to anchor her narrative. But Amanda is using costly signal, risking her own standing to say, I was there for 20 years. It's the ultimate narrative showdown, the power of the official statement versus the power of the person who remembers. Read more of my thoughts in the description and tell me in the comments, which one of these feels more real to you, the polished defense or the messy memory?
This is absolutely shocking. We now likely know why Melania Trump gave this Epstein press conference the other day. It's because of this woman, Amanda Angaro, who has been friends with Melania Trump for 20 years. And that right there is her husband, Paulo Zampoli, who Trump appointed to the Kennedy Center board as well as a special envoy to the United States. But he also happened to be a good friend of Jeffrey Epstein and appears in the Epstein file over and over again, 16 different times. In fact, Paulo claims to have introduced Melania to Trump in 1998. Now, his wife, Amanda, who was friends with Melania Trump for 20 years, was on Jeffrey Epstein's Lolita Express multiple times. But Amanda is now angry because Paulo here asked Trump to deport her over a custody battle over their son. So Amanda is now speaking out, threatening legal action and to spill the beans on everything. And she's going to tear Melania down as well as the system.
The more I look into the Epstein matter, I see that there are three classifications of victims. One are the victims that we will never know about, that we will never hear from, that may not be on this planet any longer. But the other two, the ones that we have been seeing at press conferences and speaking to congressmen, these are the survivors that got away. They were victimized as children and they got away. There is another classification of survivors, and those are the ones that never got away, that continue to be enmeshed in that circle and continue to be victimized through their adulthood. Let's look at the story of Amanda Angaro. I did a video on her yesterday. You might want to watch. It's going kind of viral. Here's some more background on her. So she has been in a relationship with Paulo Zampoli. Why does that matter? Well, number one, he is a longtime associate of Trump's. He started with the Trump Organization, I got notes here, in 2004 as the Director of International Development. He currently holds a position in the U.S. government as Special Representative for Global Partnerships. He says he's the one that introduced Trump and Melania to each other at a party in New York in 1998. So he and Amanda, he says they were never married, but they have 2 children together. And when she decided to split from him, an ugly custody battle ensued. And guess what happened after the custody battle ensued? She was picked up by ICE. Now, Amanda had come into the country legally, but her visa had expired. And Zampoli admits to contacting ICE. Now he says, oh, but I wasn't trying to have her detained. But he admits to contacting ICE, and she was detained by ICE. Someone who has a position of power and someone who...
So everyone is just saying, protect Amanda Angaro, protect Amanda Angaro, protect Amanda Angaro, protect Amanda Angaro. When you go to X and see all those comments, there are messages. You can call it spamming or flooding. Everyone, protect Amanda Angaro, protect Amanda Angaro. Everyone is in our support because people demanded for the truth. Nobody asked Melania Trump. She came out and just started exposing herself, started blabbing about all these things. So there's something that Amanda Angaro knew, and she knew all the dirty secrets that Melania knew about them Epstein. And I think this is a weakness of women. She knew that at some point this was a terrible case, or this will turn to be a terrible case, but she couldn't just keep the secret. She shared with her friend. So many years later, friendship falls apart, things get exposed. The truth is out there. All I want to know is like, what do you really think about this? What do you really make of this? The moment I saw Melania Trump speak publicly on a press conference, I knew she was trying to project something. And it didn't take long. And I told you guys, I told you that just give it time. There's something cooking. There's just something cooking that we don't know. So I think, this is just what I think, probably Melania Trump knew Amanda Angaro will come for her. And at the right time that she went ahead, exposed herself. All this shows you human patterns and how it goes. She was just projecting what she was already expecting. Birds of feathers flock together. They are all bad news. What goes around comes around. The truth will prevail, and the mask will show their real evil faces. And I told you, somehow, somewhere, she is associated with them files. Yeah. She is associated with them files. This is not a rocket science. This is just the truth. I mean, let me know what you think about this. Somebody say that I knew when I saw Melania Trump do that press conference denouncing anyone who tried to link her to Jeffrey Epstein, that something bad was going to come out linking her to the whole debacle. Melania knew that Amanda Angaro was getting out and add that on her. So she's trying to run a preemptive strike with this press conference. Well, it ain't working. And all the flights to the moon and wars and going to make ish go away, like my grandmother used to say, tell the truth and shame the damn devil. In this case, she needs to tell on herself and her husband. We all know how that goes. Right. The level of depravity of these people who know no bounds. A whole lot of psychopaths say they are governing, but now we know they operate in bundles to protect their dirty lifestyle and then offer up a shadow of illusion of governance. We all need to be enlightened of the world we are living in. The collective conscience and the minds of the people must come together and tear down this system. The Slovenian lady became America's first lady, gained a visa through the Einstein visa program, but her educational background doesn't make sense at all. She is part of the Epstein's Europe. Special. Why is it always that East European countries that they target? The United Nations diplomat. How did that happen? So the Epstein links are also in the UN. I mean, really tell me what you think about this. FBI and CIA should be prosecuted to not have informed us, the citizens, about the ties between the Epstein and the many policies figures, especially in those running for presidency. They have endangered and weakened the country, leading to 9/11 and illegal wars to depend on the U.S. taxpayers and Americans' lives. Federal and national officials, agents should be reviewed and fired. You can go nowhere with U.S. corporation except war and deception.